Hi.
I hate you. And I hate that I hate you because that means somewhere in my heart I love you. Hating you means I think about you. Hating you means a part of me yearns for you, yearns for your attention, yearns for your touch, yearns for you to say my name. And maybe one day I can tell you I love you without crying. And maybe one day I'll find the strength to answer the phone when you call. And maybe, just maybe, one day I'll start loving genuinely again.
Deputy Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois Black Panther Party.
The Black Panthers are the single greatest threat to our national security. Our counterintelligence program must prevent the rise of a black messiah.
And I see oceans overflowing.
You might not be ready.
Blackface. Blackface.
Can I ask you, can you describe your role as an editor?
Basically, an editor's job is, while production goes out and shoots whatever it is, whether it's, a movie, a TV show, a documentary, music video, once you have all the footage, the editor is the one who actually kind of puts together shot by shot and cut by cut the actual movie. So the editor, along with the director, working in tandem. The first thing is kind of like organizational, just figuring out what you have and getting everything organized and where it's supposed to be. And then your job is to, start going through footage, usually with the director, trying to get either sometimes a director will tell you which takes they like or don't like, or stuff they like. Sometimes you watch together and kind of talk about what they like and what they don't like. So that's usually the first step, is kind of organizing everything, getting it in, especially now since everything's digital, you have to get it into whatever program you're using, whether it's Premiere or Avid or Final Cut or whatever else is out there now. Then the second step is kind of looking through everything, getting to know what you have, figuring out what your director likes and doesn't like. And then it's literally, scene shot by shot, is you're the one picking the take of, which line are we going to use for this? Are we going to use a wide shot? Are we going to use a close-up? Or, how long are we going to stay in this shot? And actually putting the film together. And then once you have it kind of put together, your job is to kind of re-edit. It's kind of like writing. How they say writing is rewriting, is editing is mostly re-editing. You kind of put it all together and you see what you have, and then you kind of re-edit and cut stuff out, usually trying to tighten things up, especially with features. I try and keep in mind that an hour and a half or 2 hours is a long time. So I try and keep in mind, try to keep the audience in mind when I'm cutting to keep things moving. So a lot of the editor's job is kind of shaping performance of the actors, because you're going to get a bunch of different takes from the actors. So you have to pick the takes, you have to pick takes that, are believable, but also that work with each other. So, it seems like one performance and not, what it actually is. It's like trying to make things seem like they just kind of happened in that moment, as opposed to what actually happens, when you're on a set, you're like doing one little thing from one angle, 10 times, and then you switch and do another little thing from another angle. And then, you're doing things all out of order. You're doing things multiple times. So it's really like a lot of it is trying to make everything kind of seem like it just kind of happens.
When you were editing, do you feel like you could put your personality into it while editing, or do you feel kind of restricted in a way?
I wouldn't say restricted. I mean, I think my job as an editor is it depends. It's different from project to project, I think my personality does come through my projects, but it's more so in the projects I choose to work on, the people I like working with, the people I work with again, and I guess kind of to an extent, the subject matter of the projects, what they're about. But each project is different. So I wouldn't want to kind of impose my personality on, any particular kind of personality, because I feel like then that kind of locks you into a style. And I don't want to be locked into any one style. I want to, a lot in the film industry, you get kind of pigeonholed sometimes. Is like, people will be, oh, you're good at this, you're good at action, you're good at romance, you're good at comedy, you're good at whatever, drama. But I prefer to, I don't want to have any specific style because I want to be able to do all different kinds of projects, and really, but I mean, your personality does come through just, I think it's in the projects you choose, and the projects the people you end up working with. And then once you build a body of work, you can kind of see what their interests are. So a lot of my work has a lot to do with race. I've done a lot of movies either specifically about race or just, movies and TV shows that involve race, a lot of race and gender and things like that. Cause that's just what I guess, find interesting to work on.
You brought up race and gender and such. There's a huge problem with diversity, especially when it comes to the film industry, even when it comes to like representation or even just the type of people who work in it in general. So how do you as an editor try to help that issue besides just working on films that have to do with race and gender?
It's tough. It's a huge problem in the industry. It's very bad. And in post especially, people, I think part of the issue is a lot of people aren't exposed to these jobs. When they think of movies, you think of actors and directors and, the big names, but we don't really get exposed to all the other jobs, and especially in post-production, it's very white, very male, very straight, and so what I've tried to do is, again, it's the people, it's the people you work with. But now that I'm getting a little tired, my career's getting a little better when I can hire assistant editors now. I always make sure that I'm trying to hire minorities, women, anyone, just trying to, increase increase the exposure that people have to this industry. But sometimes it's hard to even find people. You put feelers out and you talk to people and you try and cast a wide net, but it's hard to sometimes find candidates because, like I said, a lot of people they're not even going for these jobs, So I try, whenever I can hire people, I try and hire as many minorities and female candidates as I possibly can.
When cutting scenes out of like movies or even TV shows or short films in general, do you have to speak to the director first? And if so, like, how does that conversation usually go?
The relationship between an editor and the director is like everything, really, in my job. Because my job is to kind of help them get the best out of their material, and I have to kind of understand what they're going for and, what they're trying to do. And so, yeah, I don't just like cut things out and be like, this is how it should be. Because I think, it's always a conversation. It's different. It's a different conversation for every director. Directors like to work differently. Some directors are very hands-on and they want to be there for everything. And they're kind of just like, you're just doing it together the whole time. Other directors like to kind of give you notes and be like, I like this, I like that. This was too whatever or whatever. And then let you go by yourself and work on it, then come back. Usually it's a combination of those two. But, the conversation is different. Again, it's different with each director. My job is I try and understand what they want and what they're trying to do, and make sure I'm on the same page as them, kind of like any kind of stylistic things they're going for, anything things they like, things they don't like, and then, yeah, it's just, it's the two of us working together, or, sometimes it's multiple directors. That's fun. I've done that where I've had like two directors working on the same thing. The conversation's always different, but it's always really just like, how are we going to get the best version of what you were setting out to do, given what you actually shot.
So besides the director, do you interact with the other people on the set?
Not so much. Sometimes I haven't done this, but I know some movies they'll have like the editor on set editing while they're shooting. I mean, there's nothing, I like being on set, it's fun, but there's nothing honestly for me to do on set. So I don't get to meet like a lot of the actors sometimes, which is interesting because, I spend like months looking at them and like judging them and talking about them and hearing all these stories about them from the set through the director, but I don't actually know these people, and then usually it'll be later during, either during the editing process, they might come by, or I'll meet them at a premiere or something.
You mentioned that you have a director who just kind of gives you notes and then hands it on to you, and then you have the director that kind of sits next to you. Which one do you prefer more and why? Or do you even have a preference?
I don't really have a preference. I think, it's, I think you need both. I think you need a little bit of both. I do think there are, it helps sometimes to just not have the director there so you can just try different stuff, and not have to worry. But for the most part, you develop a kind of a trust with the director, so they trust your opinion. So you're not really worried, you can try stuff, and if it doesn't work, they're not going to be like, oh, you're a bad editor. It's just that idea didn't work, But lots of most ideas don't work. I mean, a lot of the job is like trying things. You have an idea, you're like, oh, this would be interesting to do it this way, and you're like, all right, well, let's see if we have the footage and can we do it that way, and then you try and do it, and then you're like, okay, is this as interesting as we thought, or is it not interesting, or can we do it better? Just constantly tweaking and changing and trying different things.
You have edited both short films, a feature film, and TV shows. Like, what's the difference between editing those three? Or is there even a difference?
The scale, mostly, just the size. Shorts are great. I love shorts. I still like working on shorts now. Like when I finished working on Judas and the Black Messiah, I did like 2 shorts right after. Because I like the directors and I just like working on shorts because their shorts are great because they're great to learn on. The only way you're going to learn how to, really make a movie is to make a movie. You can talk about it and read about it, but like it's actually doing it where you learn.
What do you do to keep that creative spark going?
It's hard. Sometimes the only thing you can do is think about something else for a while, for a little while. It's tough. You start out doing these things because you enjoy doing them, and then it like becomes a job, and then you have to, you have to be creative. You have to kind of make it happen on demand. And I mean, I think for me, if I ever get kind of stuck like that, I kind of just try and like break it down to its most simple elements, and I kind of be like, okay, what am I saying here? What's the point of this? Like, whose point of view is it? Who am I talking to? What are we talking about? Like, just like try and get really, try and backtrack, start at the beginning. If I'm having trouble and I can't figure something out, sometimes it is just like going outside because I like I do like going outside. So, sometimes you do need like to take a break.
Now that you're an editor, when you watch movies now, do you ever sit and like be like, oh, they should have edited that differently. Oh, they should have did this. Oh.
I try not to, just because you don't know what they were working with. It's hard, I think instead of making me more critical of other movies, it's made me like more forgiving working on movies, just because I don't know. I don't want to judge them because I don't know what they're working with. I don't know what the footage, like sometimes you'd be like, oh, why did they stop? That shot was great. They should have stayed in that shot. But you don't know what happened. The shot could have cut, or, the camera could have cut out, or, someone could have walked by and messed it up, or who knows what happened. And they had to do it there. So I think since I've been doing it, the longer I do it, the more I kind of like can understand what happened, or be like, it might not be their fault. Who knows what they're dealing with? They might have had terrible producers, or the director might have been crazy. Who knows?
Do you have anything that you had edited and you were really, really proud of it and you were like, yeah, this is it. This is good. And then some, like you had maybe like a peer review or something and they kind of just tore it apart. And if so, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think everybody has those moments. I mean, I feel like, a lot of a lot of the notes kind of process. So a lot of my job is like we cut everything together, and then producers and other people are, give their opinion, and like you start recutting stuff and trying different stuff. And a lot of that process is basically that, where like you think it's good and people just tear it apart. And I, as an editor, I can't be sensitive. It's just not, like, I wouldn't survive in this job. In terms, like, I can't be sensitive in that way. I can't be sensitive if if people don't like the things I've done. When I get notes where people tear things apart, I try and listen, honestly. And I try and, and it's not always the note. Like, a lot of it is figuring out what's behind the note. They might be like, this is bad, or this is that, or they don't like this. But it might not even be that. It might be, it took too long to get up to that, or the stuff that came before it distracted from that, or who knows, and a lot of my job, I think, is with, like, when we get notes and stuff with the director, is sitting down and figuring them out. And yeah, a lot of them are, you thought it was good, and people are like, I don't get it. Why did they do this? And you're like, oh, I thought it was all there. I guess I was wrong. But it's tough. You have to listen, because, you're watching this, when you're editing it, you're watching it like a million times, whereas the audience is only going to watch it once. And so it's hard to, like, put yourself in position as someone who hasn't seen something, and so you're doing stuff and you're like, yeah, this makes sense, because it makes sense to you. You and the director are like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then you show other people and they're like, I don't get it. And you're like, no, because and they're like, oh, I didn't see that at all. Like, and you're like, oh, okay, we're too close. We have to, get a little distance and figure out, what's working and what's not.
Do you have any advice that you would give to your younger self, or?
Any advice I would give to my younger self? Yeah, probably. It's funny. It's hard. I feel like I don't think my younger self would listen. I would tell him, and he would have to learn on his own, because I feel like, it's like making a movie. You think it's like you going back to your question about the difference between, like, a feature and a short. It's like, when you're doing your shorts, they're really hard. You're working really hard, and you're like, oh man, this is hard, but you're doing it and it's short. And then you don't realize, like, how much more effort it kind of takes, and how much more effort it takes to kind of sustain that over, like, when you're trying to do it professionally. So yeah, I would tell my younger self, like, you're not working as hard as you probably could. You could work a little harder, you could, yeah, but I don't know if he'd listen, because he'd be like, I do work hard.
Can I ask you to repeat this following sentence? I am an editor because, and then, like, you say the because.
Wow, that's a good question. I am an editor because I like to tell stories, and I like to I'm an editor because I like that I'm one of the last people to touch everything. That I get to, I'm an editor because I like being able to take all this work that all these other amazing artists have done, from, actors and writers and costume designers and set design and, everything. And I get to take all these different things and kind of play with them and put them together. And I'm one of the last people to kind of shape everything. So I'm an editor because I like having my hands on it last, or being able to do that.
Thank you. And thank you again for your time. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot.
Thanks a lot.